You know, we've all seen those ads, right? The ones that promise to unlock our deepest secrets with just a little bit of spit. Companies like 23andMe and Ancestry DNA have built this massive industry on that exact promise. But when you send in that sample, what are you really giving them? Let's break down the science, the secrets, and, the really serious questions behind these at-home genetic tests.
So this is really the big question that drives this whole industry, isn't it? What secrets are actually hiding in your DNA? Is it this super detailed map of your family tree? Or maybe a stark warning about your future health? Or is it just a bunch of fun facts about whether or not you have attached earlobes? And the appeal is its simplicity. It's just so easy. The companies market this simple 4-step promise. You order a kit, you spit in a tube, mail it back, and then, in about 6 to 8 weeks, boom, your results pop up online. I mean, they've designed it to be as easy as ordering a pizza.
But how on earth did getting this kind of information become so simple and so affordable? Let's rewind a bit. Back in the year 2000, you had the Human Genome Project, this massive public undertaking. And the cost to sequence a single human genome back then? $100 million. Absolutely mind-boggling.
Okay, now fast forward just 15 years. By 2015, that cost had completely plummeted to around $500. This dramatic, almost unbelievable drop in price is the single biggest reason why millions of us can now get our personal genomes mapped right from our living rooms.
So, you've mailed in your sample. What happens next? Let's pull back the curtain and actually go inside the lab to see how a little bit of your saliva gets turned into a detailed genetic sequence.
The whole process really hinges on something called a SNP. It stands for Single Nucleotide Polymorphism, which I know sounds super complicated, but it's really just a fancy way of saying there's a variation in a single letter of your genetic code. Honestly, the easiest way to think about it is like finding a single letter typo in a massive, massive book. So where the code is supposed to read GCAT, yours might read GTAT. It's a tiny, tiny change, but it's these tiny changes that make every single one of us unique.
So here's the thing. The lab isn't reading your entire 3 billion-letter genetic book from start to finish. Nope, it's more like a targeted search. It scans your DNA for thousands of these known SNPs, and by analyzing the patterns it finds, it can build a remarkably detailed profile of you.
And this brings us to the part everyone is waiting for, right? The weeks have gone by, you finally get that email, and the results are in. So what does your genome actually have to say about you? The reports you get cover an incredible range of stuff. You get the big one, of course, your ancestral origins, tracing your roots all across the globe. But then there's the serious health data, like your carrier status for over 40 inherited conditions, or reports on your genetic risk for diseases like late-onset Alzheimer's. And yeah, there's the fun stuff too, like finding out if you're genetically wired to hate broccoli.
But this data can reveal things that go way beyond just ancestry or health risks, and this is where it gets really fascinating. A geneticist might look at this and say, okay, this is the fun part. We can actually use this data to see the genetic shuffle that happened from your parents and count the crossover events that literally made you, you.
Let me show you what I mean with a quick case study. So here we have the father's chromosomes. The testing company has colored them all blue, which in this case represents a purely European ancestry. Pretty simple, right?
Now check out the mother's genetic background. It's a bit more complex. For each chromosome pair, one is solid blue. That's from her European parent. While the other one is a mix of yellow and red, representing East Asian and Native American ancestry. So that tells us one of her parents was European and the other was not.
And here's what we see in their daughter. Her chromosomes are this beautiful mosaic of all 3 colors. And this isn't just some random mix, it's a literal map. You can visually pinpoint exactly where her mother's and father's chromosomes swapped pieces of DNA. It's a perfect record of genetic recombination. Just amazing.
And what's cool is that this picture reveals a key biological rule. Just notice that as the chromosomes get smaller, there are fewer color changes. This makes total physical sense. Smaller chromosomes just have less room, so there are fewer opportunities for these crossover events to happen.
Okay, as fascinating as all that is, we have to pivot and talk about the crucial other side of this coin, the risks and the realities. It is so important that we all read the fine print.
The U.S. Food and Drug Administration, the FDA, has raised some major concerns that really boil down to 2 key areas. The first is what they call analytical validity. Basically, is the test accurately measuring the thing it claims it's measuring? The second, and maybe even more important one, is clinical validity.
In other words, how reliably do those test results actually predict what's going to happen with your health?
And this brings up a huge limitation. Research has actually shown that for a lot of common diseases, just a thorough family medical history can be a better predictor than one of these SNP-based tests. Now, don't get me wrong, these tests are valuable for certain complex diseases, but they are definitely not a substitute for traditional medicine.
It's so important to understand that getting this information can have real emotional consequences. I mean, it can cause serious anxiety, depression, even guilt. It might lead people to make uninformed medical decisions, especially since the tests often can't tell you how severe symptoms might be. And maybe the hardest part, for many of the genetic disorders they can identify, there simply are no effective treatments yet.
And all of this leads us to the biggest question of all, one that goes beyond just your personal health and affects society as a whole. When you send in that sample, who really owns your genome?
The main fear here is something called genetic discrimination. This is when people are treated differently, say by an employer or an insurance company, just because they happen to have a gene mutation that increases their risk for some kind of disorder.
Now, to try and address this, the U.S. government passed the Genetic Information Non-Discrimination Act, or GINA. It has two main parts. Title I from May 2009 makes it illegal for health insurers to use your genetic info to make coverage decisions. Then Title II from November 2009 does the same thing for employers when it comes to hiring or firing.
But, and this is a huge but, GINA is not a perfect shield. The law has some really significant loopholes. It doesn't apply to employers with fewer than 15 employees. It doesn't cover folks in the U.S. military or those using the Veterans Health Administration. And critically, it offers zero protection against discrimination when it comes to life insurance, disability insurance, or long-term care insurance.
So this all brings us to the final, crucial question. Your genome is the most intimate, most fundamental data that exists about you. Knowing what it can reveal, the power it holds, and where those legal protections fall short, the real question is, are you ready to share it?